Picture two children, both 4 years old. One of them has just spent the last 35 minutes arranging small stones in a pattern on the ground, completely absorbed, completely unbothered. The other has cycled through 6 different activities in the past 20 minutes and is currently melting down because the app won't load. Same age, completely different brains. And the gap between them didn't start at school. It started in the first months of life, shaped by small, daily decisions that most parents in the West have never been told to think about. What Japanese parents have understood for generations, and what brain science is now catching up to confirm, is that the architecture of a child's mind is largely built before they ever set foot in a classroom. And the materials that build it aren't flashcards, programs, or early reading practice. There's something far simpler and far easier to access if you know what you're looking for. Researchers who have spent years studying early childhood outcomes across different countries keep landing on the same uncomfortable finding. Children in Japan consistently outperform their peers in measures of attention, working memory, emotional regulation, and problem solving. Not by a small margin. And not because Japanese parents are doing more, in many ways they're doing less, but the things they protect fiercely, consistently, and without apology, those are the things that actually build a brain. Let's start at the very beginning of the day, or more accurately, the end of the night. Japanese families treat sleep as something close to non-negotiable. A young child's bedtime does not shift because company is coming. It doesn't flex for a birthday dinner or a holiday gathering. Children between 1 and 5 go to bed at consistent times every single night and typically sleep 11 to 12 hours. Researchers studying the relationship between sleep duration and cognitive development have found that children who get significantly less sleep show measurable differences in how their brains process and store new information. And the reason makes biological sense. The brain isn't passive during sleep. It's doing the most important consolidation work of the entire day, strengthening connections formed while the child was awake, clearing out what wasn't useful, locking in what was. Disrupt that process consistently enough, and the brain pays a compound cost. Japanese parents don't protect sleep because they're rigid. They protect it because they understand that everything else they do during the day depends on it. The second habit involves something that modern parents have quietly started treating as optional: going outside. Not to a class, not to a structured play date, just outside in natural spaces, with room to move and explore without adult direction. Japanese children spend time outdoors every day in all kinds of weather, in parks and gardens and patches of wild ground where they can dig and climb and observe and wander. Research comparing brain development in children with regular outdoor access versus those who spend most of their time in indoor, screen-heavy environments has found meaningful differences in stress hormone levels and in how the prefrontal cortex, the seat of attention and impulse control, matures over time. A child's nervous system responds to natural environments differently than it responds to built ones. Something about unstructured outdoor time, the variability, the sensory complexity, the physical freedom, allows the brain to settle in a way that supports better focus when focus is actually needed. Now, here's where Japanese parenting diverges most sharply from what most Western parents are doing. And it's the one that tends to generate the most resistance when you say it out loud. Children under 3 in Japan are typically not watching screens. And between ages 3 and 6, the average daily exposure is somewhere around 30 minutes. Compare that to estimates suggesting many children in other developed countries are averaging 4 to 6 hours of daily screen time before they start school. The reason this matters isn't theoretical. Neuroimaging research examining the brains of young children with heavy early screen exposure has found structural differences in regions associated with language processing and executive function. Not risks, not possibilities, visible differences. Pediatric health organizations have now drawn firm lines around early screen exposure, calling for near total avoidance in the first year and a half of life, with tight restrictions continuing well beyond that. Japanese parents didn't need the guideline. They were already living by something like it. And here's the practical logic they operate from. A young brain has a finite number of hours. Every hour spent in front of a screen is an hour not spent doing the things that build neural architecture in ways screens simply cannot replicate. Which raises the obvious question: what fills those hours instead? The answer, for Japanese children, is their hands. Young children in Japan regularly participate in activities that are physical, tactile, and genuinely open-ended. They knead dough in the kitchen. They work in soil. They use clay, water, sand, real materials that push back, behave unexpectedly, and require constant adjustment. Studies examining brain activity in young children during hands-on sensory exploration versus screen-based activities have found substantially more widespread neural activation during physical manipulation. When a child is pressing, pouring, shaping, and figuring out how things behave in the real world, multiple brain regions are working simultaneously in a coordinated way. That kind of whole brain engagement creates neural networks that are richer and more flexible than those built through passive observation. Japanese parents offer these experiences not as educational activities, but as daily life. The expectation that children will touch, explore, and make a mess isn't something to be managed. It's something to be protected. But here's what ties all of it together, and also what's most at risk in modern family life: presence. Genuine, undivided, face-to-face presence. Japanese parents spend significant portions of their day in direct interaction with their young children. Not nearby, not in the same room while doing something else, actually with them, tracking what they're looking at, responding to what they're saying, asking questions and waiting for answers, building real back-and-forth exchanges. Longitudinal research tracking language development from infancy through early school age has consistently found that the quality of early conversational interaction, the genuine serve and return of a parent who is actually paying attention, predicts vocabulary, comprehension, and later academic performance far more reliably than any educational program or learning tool. The critical word in all of that research is genuine. Passive exposure to language, hearing voices from a screen or from a parent whose attention is elsewhere, does not produce the same effect. The brain specifically benefits from interaction where it has to listen, process, and respond. A child talking to a parent who is actually listening is doing something neurologically different from a child hearing speech in the background. This is where the hardest, honest conversation lives, because presence is exactly what gets eroded first when modern life gets busy. It's so easy to be physically near a child while being mentally elsewhere. Japanese parents who embody this approach aren't extraordinary people. They've simply accepted something that's hard to accept in a culture that rewards busyness. That for a young child, your actual attention is the most valuable developmental resource they have access to. And underneath all of it is a philosophy that runs counter to the pressure most parents feel from the moment their child is born. These years are not for getting a head start. They're for building a foundation. Japanese early childhood culture does not involve drilling toddlers with phonics or pushing formal learning before children are neurologically ready for it. The evidence actually supports waiting. Children who spend their earliest years in rich sensory play, in natural environments, in well-rested bodies, and in genuine relationship with attentive caregivers tend to show stronger academic performance later, not in spite of skipping the early academics, but because their brains had time to mature properly first. The attention, regulation, and working memory they develop through those foundational years make formal learning far more efficient when it arrives at the right time. So the question isn't what more you should be adding to your child's day. The question is whether you're protecting the things that actually matter. Sleep that doesn't get negotiated away. Time outside that doesn't get replaced by convenience. Limits on screens that feel uncomfortable to hold. Experiences that are real and physical and messy. And your actual presence, phone down, eyes up, listening. That's not a curriculum. It's not a program you purchase or a schedule you build. It's a set of choices made over and over that slowly and quietly shape the brain your child will carry for the rest of their life.